Finally, it appears we may be getting something in the WNBA that some of us have been longing and calling for. We know the referees were an absolute joke in this league. They were awful. They didn't call any fouls. You had people getting their nose busted open, blood all over the floor with no whistles being blown. We watched Caitlin Clark get the living life beat out of her every game, being targeted and not getting any foul calls. The girl can't get to the free throw line to save her life because they refuse to call fouls for her. And it appears, shout out to Rachel Demita. She had Annie Costable on. I recommend all of you.
They finally said it. The league is taking action. After months of outrage and undeniable proof, the WNBA is moving to bring in new, highly qualified referees to elevate the game and ensure player safety. This shocking development comes in response to the chaos and blatant injustice on the court, particularly the repeated targeting of Caitlin Clark. The previous officiating crew was a complete disaster, allowing brutal plays, injuries, and bloodshed without a single whistle. The era of unchecked aggression, especially against the league's brightest star, appears to be ending, signaling a long overdue shift that players and fans have been demanding.
The girl can't get to the free throw line to save her life because they refuse to call fouls for her. And it appears, shout out to Rachel Demita. She had Annie Costable on. I recommend all of you go watch this interview at full length. Annie Costable addressed that the players in the WNBA is looking to bring in new referees, more qualified referees to create a better and a safer game. We got to get into it. Welcome to Keep the Vision. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the channel, hit that bell notification, hype the video. Let's go over to Rachel Demita. Shout out to you. You're doing your thing. Let's take a listen at what Annie Costable had to say on Rachel Demita's Courtside Club.
For far too long, Caitlin Clark embodied the league's systemic failure. Game after game, she faced relentless targeting, yet fouls went consistently ignored. It got to the point where she couldn't reach the free throw line, not from lack of effort, but because referees repeatedly refused to enforce the rules. This blatant neglect didn't just hinder her scoring, it warped the game itself, leaving fans frustrated as they watched raw physicality go unchecked. The outrage became impossible to ignore, demanding a long overdue reckoning.
Costable had to say on Rachel Demita's Courtside Club.
What do you think is the biggest thing, just as far as the product on the floor? Because a lot of people talk about physicality, a lot of people talk about the referees. I actually did a deep dive in one of my episodes talking about like who the referees are calling to, essentially, and where the W gets their referees. But as far as the product, because at the end of the day, fans are not going to stick around if it's not a good product, period.
Right.
Like, they have to be there for the basketball, and I think a lot of casual fans got pulled into the W because Caitlin...
The truth behind this shift came to light during a key interview on Rachel Data's show, where Anna Aostable delivered a critical update. She revealed that WNBA players are united in demanding a full overhaul, exposing the deep flaws in the current system. This isn't just about one star, it's about protecting the integrity of the sport. The discussion made clear that the game on the court was suffering, and fans, especially those captivated by Caitlin Clark's electric play, wouldn't stay if basketball remained a poorly officiated, overly brutal spectacle. The message is clear: commercial pressure is now forcing the league to act.
Who gets their referees. But as far as the product, because at the end of the day, fans are not going to stick around if it's not a good product, period.
Right.
Like, they have to be there for the basketball, and I think a lot of casual fans got pulled into the W because Caitlin had such a different game that was like just very, very exciting to watch, and she's an incredible player. So they're there, now they're seeing this product, they're like, oh, this is cool. There's other players that I'm like getting super invested in. But a lot of people have called out like physicality, referees. Have you heard anything from players, owners, like any of your sources about them actively working on improving the product?
Yeah, I mean, officiating?
The officiating problem runs far deeper than Caitlin Clark's rookie season. Coaches across the league have been battling poor refereeing for years, long before the current spotlight, including legends like Cheryl Reeve, famous for her fiery protests. Even going back to Candace Parker's rookie year, players were repeatedly taken down with no calls made. This history shows the issue is systemic, not sudden. What's different now is the unprecedented scrutiny, finally pushing the league to confront a crisis that's been ignored for far too long.
attention on the league now is forcing the league's hand, because all these years that they've been like, yeah, we're doing enough. Like, again, we've been asking in press conferences for years, like, what's up with this thing, right? And so now, again, the microscope is so fixated on the league that they have to answer these questions and they have to do better. And so, yes, the officiating has been a problem. It was a problem. It will continue to be a problem until they treat the hiring of these officials as, again, the same way they treat the players in terms of making this like a lucrative
opportunities are now on the line as Caitlin Clark's arrival has drawn unprecedented attention to the WNBA, transforming the landscape. Where the league once shrugged off concerns with empty reassurances, they now face an unrelenting public microscope. Every missed call, every unchecked foul, every moment of excessive physicality is examined by millions. This intense scrutiny is finally compelling the league to act. Ignoring these long-standing issues now comes at a steep cost, risking the loss of a growing fan base and threatening the league's remarkable momentum.
One thing, the women's game is always just going to be a little bit more physical there. However, I see with Adam Silver and what he's done in the men's game, like, I've just seen the NBA adapt so much. And again, like I said, I've been covering the NBA for over a decade now, so I've been more in tune with it. But he protects his superstars because he knows that they have to stay on the floor. Like, and that's why I've always been one who's been like, yes, Asia has a good whistle. She should have a good whistle. She's earned a good whistle. Like, she should be protected as a superstar, and she's also kind of morphed her game into making sure that she gets those calls. But that's the one thing where I feel like there's been a disconnect in the W.
Insiders say the issue runs far deeper than individual referee skill. It's a structural failure within the officiating system itself. Top-tier refereeing can't thrive when pay is low, development pipelines are weak, and there are no strong incentives to attract the best talent. It's a simple equation. You get what you invest in. Historically, the league has underfunded officiating, fueling a cycle of inconsistency and poor performance that directly harms both the quality and safety of the game. This deep-rooted flaw now calls for a full systemic overhaul.
They should be protected.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on the sense that stars earn a special whistle. We see it in across leagues, and there's validity to the fact that you protect your star players to a degree because of the importance of them being available and being on the floor. And so my question is more so, is it an issue of changing certain rules, or is it an issue like would officiating fix a lot of this that we're seeing in regards to the physical?
A glimmer of hope has emerged. A new committee has reportedly been formed specifically to tackle officiating issues. Talks about this group took place during recent competition meetings, signaling that the problem is finally on the official agenda. Yet skepticism lingers. History shows committees get created, discussions happen, but real change rarely follows. The key question remains whether this effort will deliver meaningful improvements or fade into another set of empty promises. Fans are calling for action, not more meetings or words with no lasting impact.
Right. And it brings me back to that game against the Fever and the Sun. And again, the fact that there was, even within that game, there was no consistency with the calls. And like Marina checking Caitlin to the floor, like, we can laugh. Like, Marina's a crash out queen, and I have the utmost respect for Marina, and I've covered her. I think her style, like her aggressiveness, I really love that, because that's kind of like how I am in my real life. I'm a very like aggressive person, but like to not call these things appropriately,
she should have been kicked.
While some debate the overall physicality of the women's game, nuance is essential. Physicality is part of basketball, and no one wants the women's game to soften, but there's a clear threshold where it threatens player safety and the integrity of competition. That's exactly where consistent, effective officiating is critical. The problem isn't physicality itself, it's the failure to call it when it becomes dangerous. Referees must be empowered to distinguish between aggressive play and reckless contact, protecting players without watering down the sport. A key factor often overlooked is the natural difference in play style. Women's basketball involves more action on the floor, while men's emphasizes above the rim play. When players are grounded, contact is more frequent and intense, making proper officiating not just important, it's indispensable. This fundamental difference means WNBA officiating must be highly skilled at managing contact, recognizing that the game's nature demands a distinct approach to fouls and a strong emphasis on player safety. Look at Adam Silver's NBA. Superstars are consistently protected because their presence drives both success and entertainment. Whether one agrees or not, key players often receive a special whistle to keep them healthy and on the court. The WNBA, however, has lagged in this regard. Stars like Aisha Wilson, who have earned better protection, often don't get the consistent officiating afforded to male counterparts, putting them at risk and diminishing their impact on the league. The consequences are stark. Take the controversial moment when Alyssa Thomas stole the ball from Wnba Collier, a play that by the rulebook was a foul due to unavoidable contact, leading to injuries, or critical finals games where uncalled fouls sideline star players. These aren't minor errors, they directly harm the league's product. Protecting foundational players isn't favoritism. It's a strategic necessity, vital for the league's long-term health, fan engagement, and overall credibility. Across professional sports, from basketball to football, star players often receive this kind of protection, and the WNBA must follow suit. This isn't about giving stars an unfair edge, it's about recognizing their value to the game's marketability and their team's success. Keeping top talent like Caitlin Clark on the court and healthy is essential for fan engagement and competitive balance. The WNBA's repeated failure to protect its marquee players has been a strategic misstep, threatening both athlete welfare and the league's commercial viability. Referees face a daunting task, making split-second calls in real time, and criticism exists in every sport. Yet the WNBA's core issue isn't just missed calls, it's glaring inconsistency and a failure to escalate penalties for dangerous plays. When obvious fouls go uncalled or flagrant actions are ignored, it signals that risky behavior is allowed. This lack of enforcement jeopardizes player safety, fuels aggressive play, and erodes trust in the league's fairness, demanding immediate correction. One striking example of this problem is landing space fouls. Landing space fouls, when a defender steps into an offensive player's landing area after a shot, pose serious injury risks, yet they're often ignored or not upgraded to flagrant fouls as required. Missing such fundamental calls exposes glaring gaps in referee training and preparation, directly contributing to preventable injuries and undermining the game's integrity. Take the infamous moment when Marina Mabrey knocked Caitlin Clark to the floor. Despite Mabrey's aggressive style, the lack of a proper call was inexcusable. She should have been ejected. This dangerous, unpunished play, especially against the league's most scrutinized player, highlighted the arbitrary and inconsistent nature of officiating, frustrating fans and athletes alike and underscoring the urgent need for accountability and improved on-court decision-making. Another striking example came when Kennedy Carter checked Clark while the ball wasn't even in play, further exposing the crisis in officiating. This wasn't a split-second judgment call, it was a deliberate off-ball cheap shot, yet it wasn't immediately upgraded to the proper penalty, sparking widespread outrage. Unpunished plays like this shift focus from the simple fact that it was a clear foul to unnecessary criticism of Caitlin Clark, creating a toxic discourse that detracts from the basketball itself. Missteps in officiating escalate tensions and undermine the league, turning straightforward rule enforcement into personal attacks and accusations of bias. When obvious fouls, like Carter on Clark, aren't handled properly, they fuel endless unproductive debates that overshadow the game, harm the league's reputation, frustrate journalists, and alienate fans seeking fair competition. For too long, the WNBA tolerated internal complacency around officiating, allowing systemic problems to persist unchecked.